Chris!
Heath.
You hear that?
I
voice cracked. Let me try that again. You hear that?
just barely.
That's the sound of YouTube cracking down on creators just trying to make ends meet in this dark world. And the only lighthouse... Hey, actually, I pulled that together. The only lighthouse of hope was the Silva Gunner channel that got shut down very recently. Are you familiar with the Silva Gunner channel?
I have no knowledge about this story whatsoever.
Good. And usually we save news for the end, but this has to get out. We don't decide when the news breaks.
Right. But first, this is episode 5 of Mobius Tubes.
Oh, yeah. Just plug the name. Okay. Mobius Tubes, I'm going to take you down a wormhole, Chris. My brother would say that my music tastes are awful to not even considered music, because I listen to a lot of mashups and video game soundtracks. You listen to like a video game remix or two, right?
Oh, yeah. Big fan.
Okay. I was preparing for this episode last night, and I was trying to find something to listen to. And I go back to the old faithful Silva Gunner channel on YouTube, and I see that it has multiple DMCA strikes and has been permanently shut down. And to my dismay, I switched over to Reddit to see if there was a rescue mission to save this channel. What it is a group channel of music producers who like to put memes into songs. And what I mean by that is you'll take a Super Mario track and put like the Flintstones melody in it instead of like the Koji Kondos. I've played for you a couple of songs.
Surely you have.
They'll put like Deja Vu in Papers, Please.
Oh, I'm a big fan of that idea.
Yes, so it's just a wholesome channel. And even though a couple of videos have had strikes, like one that featured Kendrick Lamar got taken down before I could download it, never have I seen the channel just get erased. And hopefully the individual creators have backups of these songs, because these songs are great. So I just wanted to get that out in the first minute. If anyone's dad works at YouTube, can you tell him to turn Silva Gunner back on? The joke is that there was this channel called Giva Sunner, which would upload songs as they appear in games. So it's just like a pure OST channel. And then they made Silva Gunner, which would change the lyrics of the Donkey Kong rap. So that's what I felt like opening the episode with.
This was the kind of news story that if I wasn't on this podcast with you, Heath, I would have never in a million years heard of it.
Or cared, but I had to get it out there. So, Chris, how was your week?
It was a good one. Coming off of the holidays, beginning the new year. This is the first episode of 2019.
And it's going strong.
Yeah. I basically brought 2 things to talk about this week, one of which I know you brought to talk about as well.
Bandersnatch.
Yeah. So let's just hop into that real quick.
Sure.
December 28th, 2018, on a little little indie streaming platform called Netflix, they released the latest episode of Bandersnatch. Instead of
Black Mirror.
Black Mirror. Thank you. Instead of a full season of episodes, this was kind of a single standalone episode of Black Mirror.
Some would say a movie.
Yeah, some would say a movie. But we'll get into that.
Some would say a game.
Oh, you took the words right out of my mouth. The episode deals with the protagonist. He's a big fan of this choose-your-own-adventure novel called Bandersnatch, and he's attempting to adapt the novel into a video game.
This is back in like 1984, right?
Yes, I think that is the exact year. What were your thoughts watching it?
Well, you told me to watch it, and I was trying to watch it from a video gamer's perspective so that I could talk about it on my video game podcast. But I was having just so much fun because I watched it in the company of friends. I had my screenwriter's hat, my Dan Harmon hat on, so I was just calling out some of the more predictable tropes from lines of dialogue to like endings. I was just riffing and saying like, oh, he's gonna guess the name of the nosedive game, or guess that it's a buffer error, and then the other guy's gonna be like, "How did you know that?" Also, are we going to go into spoilers?
I think it's fair to say we will go into, at the very least, light spoilers.
Okay,
here.
so not yet. We'll call
give
it
you
out.
a proper warning. I guess we should make this explicit. What makes this episode of Black Mirror so different from most streaming entertainment is that it's not a linear, I watch an episode experience. You, much like a choose-your-own-adventure novel, there are set points where you have two choices that you, the viewer, get to make, which directly influence what is going to play out on screen. It's an interactive piece of media, an interactive piece of entertainment. And what's kind of cool is I got some Undertale vibes from it in the sense that...
he said the U word.
In the sense that you'll pick the wrong choice once in a while, and the show will revert you back to a previous branching point where you get to remake your old decision. However, it's not a complete reset. Some characters kind of... The events that took place in that loop that closed, that former decision of yours, some of the events kind of are still in their memory somehow.
For the uninitiated, Undertale has a feature in which after you beat the game, some dialogue choices are different. Characters will say things that refer to the previous completion. And that's the case for Bandersnatch as well.
Right. Your decisions have a lasting impact. They don't disappear when you reload. You know what's cool about Undertale? If you uninstall the game and re-download it, that's not sufficient to clear your save.
Wow.
The saves remain. You have to dig deeper if you want a complete reset.
Oh, Toby, how nefarious. I didn't know that. And I know everything about
I think
Undertale.
they actually, if you boot up the game after uninstalling, they call you out for doing that.
Sick.
It has some way to register that you tried to do that.
I love it.
As far as the actual plot of the show, I thought it was pretty entertaining. It was nowhere near my favorite episode of Black Mirror. I think they're kind of just playing off the novelty of this is an interactive piece of entertainment to kind of be the selling point.
Yes, this is a one-trick pony. They're just flexing on us. You can't spell Netflix without flex.
Sure. So, as I finished watching Bandersnatch, I don't know how important the answer to this question is. Probably not at all. But I couldn't help wondering to myself, if instead of streaming Bandersnatch on Netflix, if I had instead downloaded it on Steam and it was the exact same experience, would we be calling it a game instead of a movie? There's not a whole lot mechanically separating this from, say, a Telltale game, where you make timed decisions that then influence the plot. Yeah, there are
live
real
action,
there are
though.
real life actors. It uses full motion video, but video games haven't been including full motion video since the 90s with Night Trap, or more contemporary example, Her Story in 2015.
Right.
Where it's just watching video. So I don't think that invalidates it as being a game. It's a video game. There's video and there's a game element to it. What are your thoughts on this?
I would have a hard time categorizing it as a video game first and foremost, and then a movie. Because you can't be both simultaneously, right?
I'm picturing a Venn diagram here where,
yeah.
there's the game portion and the movie portion. There are some elements that are in their own exclusive spheres, but I see a whole lot of overlap here with Bandersnatch.
You ever play the game Seen It?
I haven't.
It's a classic movie clips. You'll watch them and it'll ask you how many people were on the bus? And then you have to guess. And if you guess correctly, you move along the physical game board. That one's a board game with a visual component, but I don't think I could call that the movie video game hybrid that's all the rage right now. Bandersnatch came out a day before episode 4, right?
Yeah, it was very close to when we released our last episode of the podcast.
Yeah, so we're trying to catch up on this phenomenon.
For as long as there have been walking simulators, there's been debates on what constitutes a video game. This is very much like my own personal opinion. When I think of what falls into the definition of a game, I think of it as a system where you have the agency to make a decision, and based on your decision, you will either enter failure states or success states. And I'd say Bandersnatch, you're definitely making decisions, and you could say like the endings that cut the story short and give you like an unfavorable review at the end, those could be considered the failure states.
Those are deaths, yeah.
And then I guess it has what you would consider a success state. Not a super happy ending, but you get to like see the plot to its conclusion.
One of my questions was going to be like, did you win?
Yeah, win in quotation marks.
Right, because shall we get into the spoilers?
Yes, let's.
So chop up the body. Is that the canon ending?
It's what I would consider the closest thing it has to a canon ending.
Stefan, after you kill Dad, which is the second most laughable prompt, other than explain Netflix.
Explain the concept of Netflix to me in 1984.
And then it's like stop conversation. It's like no, I can tell him what it is. I feel like I would have been less ominous if I was talking through the computer screen. But chop up the body is also just a meme of a prompt that you'd never see in like. Well, I can't put it past other games that would have like goof prompts like that. I did a lot of research on other video games that have decision making. Some of them most certainly have the goofiest of prompts. But chop up the body, you end with the game with the most amount of post-ending stuff other than when you go back in time and kill yourself.
Right.
Also, you could do that.
You can go back in time and kill yourself.
Did you not?
I was looking after I watched it. I like pulled up
a flowchart.
Someone on Reddit threw up a flowchart that shows every possible decision, and there were some crazy ones in there. You can get on the train with your mom, and you both end up dying in the past.
I can say I've gotten every ending. What you have to do, and this will be, I'm certain that everybody's who's interested in this podcast and is listening to the spoiler part has already seen it and probably already gone through the flowcharts. But if you pick up the family photo when you freak out at one point, you get to... that has to be a dream state. What's real in this episode and what's not real?
That's a tough question to parse.
Because how come Colin knows we've met before...
Right.
But then he dies when he dies.
The rules of this universe are kind of unclear. How certain things from your previous decisions carry over while others do not. It's not super consistent in that manner.
As far as your choices matter, only except for when you take the drugs and Colin dies and you find out, oh, it was a dream. That was the only kind of cul-de-sac in this game.
Right. I think maybe at some point in the episode they bring up the concept of having an illusion of choice. Regardless of the decision you make, some things will happen no matter what. And that's a perfect example of that being the case.
I thought that the F yeah ending and the window ending are some of the funniest. So those are the ends of the Netflix branch.
Right. Probably the jokiest ending this has.
Where you can straight up fight your fellow cast members.
Right.
Or go into an amnesia state.
I'm not familiar with the amnesia state.
Oh, you chose to fight her.
I chose to fight my psychiatrist. She unsheathed 2 blades and began dueling me.
And your dad came in for the assist, right?
Yes.
Did you karate chop him or kick him in the balls?
I went for
the latter?
The low blow.
Yay! Anyway, if you choose not to fight and you try to jump through the window, the director calls cut and everybody takes 5. Stefan is wide-eyed looking for... trying to figure out what's happening.
Oh my gosh.
The assistant director comes up to him and is like, hey, Mike, because that's the actor's name. You all right? And he's like, Stefan.
Oh, no.
So he's stuck in his role. And
yes.
It's the funniest part is when the dad and the psychiatrist are being prissy actors. She gets a coffee and he's on his phone looking. And it's just so true. Having been on a film set, down to the clothing of the first AD. That's actually a very appropriate outfit. A funny thing to note, I was trying to keep track of the episode while I was watching it, and I wrote down the crazy ending, and I forgot which one to which that was referring.
Because there are so many.
So many. I didn't expect crazy endings, even though it's Black Mirror.
Right.
I thought they'd all be bleak.
Yeah, that's a given.
Yes. The Pac-Man metaphor was great. The one where Colin goes into detail about, we can die in this life and come back in a new, and how Pac-Man, when he dies, it doesn't bother him, and he's being attacked by ghosts, which might as well be his own demons. And if he goes around the one screen, he comes back on the other side.
Yeah, that was a pretty comprehensive analogy. Metaphor.
And it pays off pretty good in the program and control ending. Did you get that?
I did, yeah.
Wow. That one that was a late game ending for me, and I was kind of like, all right, we're just spinning the rims on this. You know those cars that like bump up on the front? Netflix just styling on us.
Netflix, this is like the writers, they're drafting the episode. They're throwing all the ideas against the wall, and instead of like in a usual episode where you pick the one and you go with it, you can just incorporate all of them
Take everything
into an interactive episode.
So was the game trying to kill itself? In the case of us telling the playable girl at the end, who's trying to recreate Bandersnatch after Stefan's death. Mm-hmm. Or his murder, because you chop up the body, right? When you play as the girl, the last prompt in that storyline is destroy computer or pour tea over it.
Right.
So you're doing that. Why are you doing that?
Why are you the player? Why are those the options you have?
You, the omniscient. Are you? Because my only thought is that you're actually playing as the game that is manipulating Stefan and then later the girl, trying to keep itself from being finished.
Yeah.
Am I reading too hard into this?
So a consistent theme throughout the entire episode is how much free will do we have really? And they play with that in the fact that you, this unseen body, the player, is making decisions for these characters. They're your puppets. And then there's the whole other layer to it where how much free will do you have exactly when you're given two options that more or less accomplish the same thing? So, I don't know. I don't know if Mobius Tubes is the place to debate how much free will we have as beings.
Or the qualifications of mixed media and its relationship to humanity.
Right. Are there more spoiler things you would like to talk about? I think I'm going to put up timestamps in the description where the spoilers start and where they end.
Makes sense. So let's end the spoiler talk by talking about...
I have something.
Okay.
I mentioned Telltale earlier in the episode, rest in peace, but before they went away, they were working on Walking Dead Season 4, but they were also collaborating with Netflix on an interactive project for Stranger Things.
That's right.
Which would have been streaming on Netflix.
Yeah.
What do you make of Netflix, like, making this a priority, adding more interactive television shows to their streaming platform? Is this going to become a trend? And pretty soon, like, we'll have, for every show that releases that's a traditional linear episode, are we going to have another one releasing that gives the players agency in deciding how it plays out? Or is this a flash in the pan?
Yeah, I think maybe the latter. What's disappointing maybe is probably the result that this standalone movie did not perform as well as the last season of Black Mirror. When you hear season, it's like, oh, goody. You know, at least one of these episodes is going to be a banger. But I think, I hope they release the stats, but I wouldn't expect them to. This episode was probably, did as well as maybe the pilot, but actually no, pilots do amazing, don't they? Because it's like, oh, new thing. Because
this is not my area of expertise.
I forget. Somebody look up television stats and see how well the pilot does compared to like season 3. I don't think this did as well to warrant just Bandersnatch 2, but it'd be really fun. I wish, how some or most of these decision games release the stats if it's like online and show you, this many people saved blank.
They show you the percentage of players that make each decision. You can see if you fall with the majority or the minority.
I would love to know how many people, I'm thinking 90+% went with the Netflix option as soon as they saw it. Because the other option is like this rinky-dink little...
Yes, it's like a logic truth table tree that shows a branch to represent like the fact that he's... Never mind. It's like a logo that shows it represents decisions.
Yes. So I please, Netflix, give us your data. I want to know how many of us are kill dad psychopaths so that we could really psychoanalyze ourselves.
So video games bleeding over into the realm of television. Very exciting times. Should we...
I'm going to then segue into my visual aid for this episode.
Okay.
You mentioned a flowchart.
Listeners at home, Heath has a television screen in front of me, and he pulled up, a very detailed flowchart that shows a bunch of video game titles.
Last episode, Chris mentioned how his coworkers were less familiar with video games and more familiar with film and television. So I created a handy flowchart as to how to get your friends to play video games using Bandersnatch. This is on my Twitter. All you need to do is start at Bandersnatch, because you can convince your friends to watch Black Mirror. It's Black Mirror, right? Let's say that you liked the decision making. Well, what game should you play? You should play the Stanley Parable. That's just the most classic. Stanley went to the door on his left. It's going to flow so smoothly with the Bandersnatch crowd. Now add horror. You got Until Dawn. Now add zombies. You got Walking Dead. Now add AI. You got Detroit Become Human. So you have your pick. And no one's going to walk away from the Stanley Parable being, it's no Bandersnatch. They're going to play that. And if you like the Walking Dead games, you can go down the series. And if you like the Detroit Become Human games, you can play the other David Cage games, but at your own risk.
I like how you described the David Cage trilogy as the Sadness trilogy.
Well, yes, that's its canonical title.
We have to come up with a way to release this flowchart to the viewers, because just describing it verbally isn't doing it justice.
It's on my Twitter.
Okay.
We can just link the Google image in the description.
Go to the top left. I want to see the chain that takes us to Witcher 3.
Well, hold on. I want to go through this as the creator intended.
Okay.
I wish the story focused more on the game's development. Well, then you're going to want to play the beginner's guide. Have you played that?
I have, yes.
Okay, I haven't, but I watched the full thing. The beginner's guide is a commentary. It might as well be a walking simulator through a portfolio of this person's work.
Yes.
I read the Steam description for it. It slowly turns into a narrative about a person who doesn't understand.
It's about a creator who makes small hobby video game projects, and a friend of his who really loves playing them and wants to encourage the friend to make more and more games. But the friend kind of burns out on his desire to continue making games, and the conflict that arises between them.
Right. The frustrations of an exhausted creator and a starving fan.
Yeah.
And then Davey Redden is the narrator of that game. Wow, what else has Davey Redden made? He also made the Stanley Parable, so you got that loop completed. Let's say you wanted the story to take place on the game's development. Now take the story out. You got Game Dev Tycoon. Let's say you didn't like being timed while making the decisions. How long was the timer in Bandersnatch? Probably 10 seconds.
Yeah, somewhere in that realm.
And it was kind of forgiving, right?
It was on the forgiving side.
Yeah, you didn't have to read Mass Effect paragraphs as to whether or not the decision will kill somebody.
Right. The decisions were a few words, and at most you were choosing between two decisions.
Take notes, Fallout. This is how you write prompts. So I don't like being time making decisions. Hey, we got Deus Ex Human Revolution for you. That's a fun game. Very accessible. Now add aliens. You got Mass Effect, as we mentioned before. I prefer fantasy. We got Dragon Age Inquisition. Did you play Dragon Age Inquisition?
I have.
There's no timer in that, right?
No, I don't believe so.
So you can just sit back and be a dwarf and tell people that you're upset with their clothes. Add teen angst. You got Life is Strange. Let's say that you liked the many different endings. We got Papers, Please. It's got like 20 endings. I was going to put Nier Automata on here, but I was actually thinking that people were going to use this as a reference, and I didn't want your first video game after watching Bandersnatch to be Nier Automata. That's a little much of a stretch, in my opinion.
Yes. Very niche.
If you have complaints of the flowchart, just tweet me, and I'll make adjustments as requested. Let's say you prefer that your decisions mattered less. We got Fallout 4. Because what are the decisions in Fallout 4? Who you pick to blow up the Institute, spoiler, whether or not it's like the shinier guys or the ragtag guys.
Should I say yes or should I say yes sarcastically?
Hey, there you go. Yeah, exactly. The dialogue choices are limited at best. Even less than Fallout 4, Skyrim. Same thing. Which side do you pick? It's purely cosmetic, in my opinion.
It's been so long since I've played it. I can't say.
Let's say you want your decisions to matter even less than Skyrim. We got Saints Row 4. That's mainly a reference to like the first 3 choices that you make as the president.
Right.
Cure world hunger. I get to punch this guy. Don't high five or high five the awkward guy.
That is so funny. I forgot about that opening.
None of it matters, and I don't think Saints Row 3 had some pretty significant choices as far as like the growth of your crime empire and whether or not you negotiated with the military or kind of went rogue. And, there's multiple endings in that game for good reason. Saints Row 4, not so much. It's the most linear tree you've ever seen. It's a palm tree. Let's say you don't want your choices to matter at all. Minecraft story mode. If you want the best time, watch the Super Best Friends play Minecraft story mode. The intro of that video series has Minecraft versions of Pat and Wooly like blowing their brains out and jumping into like a dumpster fire because it's the least engaging video game. You could just set the controller on the table and it'll run for hours. Your decisions do not matter. It's for babies. So play Minecraft if you don't want the decisions to matter at all. Let's say you liked controlling Stefan. We got The Sims 4. This is a reference to Janice was saying how, it might as well be The Sims. I liked making him go ballistic. You got Grand Theft Auto 5. I'm talking F yeah ending. We got Street Fighter. So that's the reference to, this is still a spoiler portion, Chris. This is a reference to what you said, you fight the psychiatrist.
Yeah.
Well, actually, you could jump out the window, like I said, but if you're choosing the F yeah ending, you're going to fight. I liked the government conspiracy and being on drugs. We Happy Few. Have you played this game?
I have not, no.
Me neither, and it's not critically acclaimed or anything, but it just checked all the boxes. I need more Surgeon Simulator. In that game, if you prick yourself with a hypodermic needle, you go into like you go high.
Oh, okay.
So I liked how my progress carried over after death. We got Minute. You played Minute, right?
I haven't, but I know it's like conceit.
Okay, so you only have a minute to live, and after that timer, whether or not you've progressed or anything, you restart the spawn point. What you can do is you can go out and gather resources, or I think you grab a sword, and that allows you to progress even further. And there's people that you can meet, and if you get all the way through their dialogue options, you now know of where the treasure is. So it's very similar to in Bandersnatch when you like see the rabbit and then you know to go to the safe and get the rabbit out and then you get on the train. I should mention that ending. The little kid is clearly aware that he's gonna die and he does the best job of just like closing his eyes and awaiting his fate. But lastly, I like that it was based on a book, The Witcher 3. That's how to get your friends to play video games using Bandersnatch.
You've included a path for just about anyone.
If anybody has any notes, you could find it on my Twitter. My apologies to people driving in the car that have no idea what I'm talking about.
Why don't you plug your Twitter?
Oh, it's just my name. It's Heath Cotton Gim.
Okay.
Bandersnatch over.
Yes, and spoilers over. That's mostly for me to make the timestamp here.
Yeah. What else did you do this week?
Okay, here's a game that I played from start to completion and have not yet talked about it on the podcast. And I kind of have less to say on it than I was expecting to. Over the holidays, I played Wolfenstein II, The New Colossus.
Interesting.
So this is a game developed by Machine Games, published by Bethesda. It is the sequel to Wolfenstein: The New Order, a 2014 release that kind of rebooted the classic Wolfenstein franchise. While it wasn't the very first-person shooter to ever be created, it's up there. You might be able to say it popularized the genre.
What genre is that?
First-person shooters.
Oh, yeah.
Back in the early 90s.
I'm not listening.
So, in 2014, Machine Games revitalized the franchise for contemporary tastes. And then in 2017, they came out with the sequel, Wolfenstein II, The New Colossus. And it came out on, like, the busiest entertainment day of the year. It was October 27th. It was up against, on the same day, Super Mario Odyssey, Assassin's Creed Origins.
Oh, my God.
And I think Stranger Things Season 2 came out that day, too.
That might be in the running for the busiest release day ever. I know that Titanfall 2 got wrecked because it came out the same day as...
It was sandwiched in between Call of Duty Infinite Warfare on one side, and then a week later, Battlefield 1 on the other side.
Nice.
And then just Titanfall 2 getting screwed right in the middle. Anyway, Wolfenstein II, The New Colossus, is an alternate history game where the Nazis ended up winning World War II and continued to expand. They have since colonized the United States of America. The game takes place in, I want to say, 1961.
Oh!
And
This isn't the futuristic one.
this is not... There's like...
Isn't there the New Order is the futuristic?
The New Order is even earlier than this.
Oh.
So probably what you're referencing, the future tech, the Nazis have somehow developed
Ancient weapons.
Like, yeah, there's some like occult stuff going on, and they have mechanized soldiers and robotic attack dogs. They have a base on the moon. They have a base on Venus.
Whoa.
So they're not exactly going for the historical accuracy in this game.
Okay.
So here's what I'll say about Wolfenstein 2. The gameplay,
Is a banger, right?
the word that comes to mind is just completely serviceable.
Oh, it's so disappointing.
It's differentiating itself from every other first-person shooter out there. It doesn't have, like, regenerating health. You're picking up med packs. You're picking up, like, armor to keep yourself alive. Your hip-fire accuracy is pretty high, kind of like a Halo. You don't necessarily have to be aiming down sights to shoot something. This game has some very strangely balanced difficulty. This is not an uncommon opinion. This is like a very difficult game. That like kind of clashes with its tone. It's very much like a game that like celebrates the fact that it tells you to go out there and enthusiastically kill Nazis. And the fragility of your character very much clashes with the tone they're trying to set of like you are an unstoppable force of nature going out there and like wrecking house.
What's his
when
name?
in reality, BJ Blazkowicz is the main protagonist. When in reality, you have the vitality of like a stealth game character, where if a guy starts shooting you from behind, you're going to be dead before you can turn around.
Yeah, a Broforce character.
So I definitely turned the difficulty down to easy right from the start.
What was it called? Like, can I play? Like,
There's the lowest setting is like, can I play daddy?
yeah, it makes fun of you.
I think I was one crank above that. It's funny when you're choosing the difficulty screen, as you switch between the different levels of difficulty,
The portrait.
you see the portrait of your protagonist, BJ, getting like more and more hostile
Roided out.
as you increase the difficulty. If you go all the way down, he has like a binky in his mouth.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's fun. Totally serviceable. Playing on easy, I wasn't ripping my hair out. I wasn't like checking out during the gameplay, but it's very much... There are first-person shooter games that feel better to play. Call of Duty, like, for all the criticism it receives, those are some very smooth and well-refined shooting mechanics it has.
It might be cookie cutter, but those cookies are delicious.
Right. Halo feels better to me to play. This is, like, You don't have a very diverse set of mobility mechanics here. You're very much just a walking guy who can also sprint or crouch. And you're shooting the same automatic weapons / shotguns / pistols you've shot a million times in other video games. The enemies are not so incredibly diverse, and they're not the most compelling enemies to fight. It's just a very average shooter. That is my takeaway.
Dang.
I guess what it has going for it is you can try to take a stealthy approach, and its mechanics will support that. I didn't really play that way, though, so...
It didn't warrant a second playthrough?
Yeah, definitely not. Every time I enter a new room, I would start out stealthy. You've got some silent throwing knives. You have a silenced pistol. I would take out probably like 1 to 2 guys. I'd get caught, and that would be the end of my stealth run.
Whoops.
I just play it like a guns blazing kind of game. So for as lukewarm as I am on the gameplay, what got me through the game from start to finish was the story. If you've played the New Order, you know they're going to go to some ridiculous places, and they amp that up in this game. I'm not going to spoil anything here. There's only so much detail I can go into, but there are...
Supernatural elements?
Not really. There's some difficult to believe elements, but supernatural, not so much. There's no shortage of like surprise in here, and this is a game that like... It doesn't shy away from really lingering on uncomfortable scenes, which is something I'm not like super used to feeling in a video game, but like they know how to, probably like your average person's gut reaction to Nazis is not a very positive one, but they know how to dial up the despicableness to 11. You will really hate Nazis by the end of this game.
Just check all the boxes of like annoying things that Nazis do. They'll just like put their feet on your coffee table. Anything that you could possibly hate them for, that they go the extra mile in this game to show.
Yes, absolutely. There are cool world building moments where you're not in a combat situation. You're just kind of walking through a Nazi-occupied American city in the South.
Oh, interesting.
You're walking through it. You're going to a diner. I won't spoil any of the context for why you're here, but you see KKK members walking down the street, like getting chummy with Nazi officers.
Oh, it's got to be.
They're just like a match made in heaven.
A super big commentary on bigotry.
Right. You constantly find like newspaper clippings and articles explaining what is going on in this very dystopian world. They nail the world building. They really nail the characters. Much of the cast from the previous game returns here. They were a very likable bunch. The new characters are great additions. They humanitize B.J. Blazkowicz, who was basically
a faceless punch man.
I wouldn't say faceless. He used to be just a face that consisted of like 6 pixels or something.
Right, because he'd be on the HUD.
He would be on the HUD looking at you, and he would just get bloodier as you took more damage. And now he's a full-blown character. I'm getting like feelings of how God of War humanitized Kratos. They do that here. I have zero regret playing this game. I'm happy I did so. There's one point in the game where, I guess, slight mechanical spoiler, not a narrative one. You get like a choice between 3 enhancements that will change how you get to play the game going forward. And each one is like tailored to a specific play style. You've got your stealth enhancement, which will let you crawl into ducts, like air ducts you could not otherwise go through. And there's like additional perks, like this. If you pick the stealth one, anytime you get spotted, the game will enter a few seconds of slow motion.
Bullet time, yeah.
So you can potentially kill your spotter before the alert is set off. I was going with kind of a shooting guns blazing playstyle, so I chose one that lets me... They called it like...
Do you heal if you kill people or something?
When you are sprinting, you can crash through like any doorway.
Oh, yeah.
And you can also like, just by barreling into enemies, you can take them out that way. And it's like extra perks for like now, instead of just having a little bit of health regeneration, you have a little bit of armor regeneration too. So it gives you like more survivability. And there's another cool one that gives you like retractable stilts, more or less. So you can get up onto really high areas. That seems like a fun way to play. I did not experience it, though.
So I guess I'm going to wait to play maybe the next installment of Wolfenstein.
Yeah, I mean, you could. I think they set this up for a sequel. I would be a little skeptical
Will
just
I
because
need to know the story?
you will definitely need to know the story.
Dang.
I'd say you could probably experience 60% of the entertainment I had playing the game by just watching it on Let's Play or something.
You don't underestimate me. I can enjoy the heck out of watching gameplay.
Sure, then that's probably what...
Depending on who's doing it.
If this game intrigues you, that's probably how you should consume it. Just because there wasn't a whole lot of gameplay innovation between the New Order and the new Colossus, I don't know how much more they're going to try to introduce in a sequel. This year they're coming out with Wolfenstein The Young Blood, which is
I've heard of that.
a spin-off game starring B.J. Blazkowicz's twin daughters. And I think there might even be co-op in it because they're twins, so maybe you and a partner could play. I'm interested. They've sold me with the world. They've sold me with the characters.
I feel like they sold everyone with the world. If you want to play cool Nazi, I just said cool. If you want to play dystopian Nazi period. Hey.
Do you want me to keep talking?
I can't.
Okay. The last thing I'll say is I actually got a version of the game that came with its DLCs, which I hadn't heard anyone speak about. It comes with these short story-driven episodes, I'd call them. They're called the Freedom Chronicles. There's 3 of them. They're about characters who you don't meet in the main story.
Are they Dishonored challenges? Or contracts, I mean.
Kind of. They set up an antagonist, and they usually deal with your protagonist hunting him down. It's a Nazi you're hunting. Or a Nazi collaborator. The first one is this dentist turned...
of course a dentist.
Dentist turned Nazi Uber commander. And you star a African-American football player who... He was continuing to play football. Now that the right was in power, he was only allowed to continue playing as long as he continued throwing games and being a punching bag for the Nazi teams.
Oh, what an interesting character.
And he eventually snaps one day and lashes out against
the coach,
against a Nazi player. So he gets imprisoned and sent to a testing facility for
Ooh, give us all your athletic genes,
yes,
you black man.
They're studying world-class athletes to try to improve human genealogy.
Yeah.
So they're cool, fun little setups.
That sounds fun, yeah.
And each of the 3 characters, they are tailored in one of the 3 play styles. You have the stealth character, you have the brash character, you have the kind of tactical, acrobatic character. And since I didn't play Wolfenstein II as a stealth game, I'm currently going through the second one. That stars Agent Silent Death. She's the stealth character. So I'm getting that stealth experience, which I lacked in the main campaign just because of my choice. And that's fun just to see how the gameplay does support other methods of approaching each mission.
Cool. That was the Wolfenstein.
That was Wolfenstein II, the new Colossus.
I will, pending the third one's, because this is a trilogy?
There are 2 mainline games, and now after this year, there will be 2 kind of shorter spin-off games. One was a prequel called The Old Blood that came in 2015, and now this is The Young Blood coming in 2019, and that's set in the 80s, so the furthest forward in the Wolfenstein timeline.
Interesting. All right. If the upcoming spinoff is a banger, I may look into this.
What else did you do this week, Heath?
I played 2 games. I played Hotline Miami, and I played Hyper Light Drifter.
Okay, I'm super excited to hear what you have to say.
Have you played either?
I've played maybe 10 minutes of Hotline Miami and 0 Hyper Light Drifter, but it's a game I really want to get to.
Okay, you would like it. Hotline Miami, I was initially so disappointed not being able to beat the first level. And this is not Broforce on hard levels of frustration. I could probably queue up me trying to play the first thing of Hotline Miami.
Did you stream it over Twitch?
I did stream it, and I will set this in the background because it needs to be understood how frustrating it was. They give you a tutorial in the beginning That feels really tacked on. It's like this random character you don't know, just saying like left trigger to aim, left bumper to throw. Or I might be messing that up. But the number of deaths that were caused by me just not remembering the controls was enough to warrant any random player to just rage quit. I was looking at YouTube to see how is it possible that anybody could beat this on normal difficulty. And I realized that the punch button is the right bumper. I was playing with the Xbox controller. Maybe if I was playing with a mouse and keyboard, it might be
maybe a little faster,
more intuitive. No, just like the punch button would be F if I'm using WASD. So that might fall on me, but I can see why people like this game and why it got a sequel because of its fast-paced gameplay. If you learn the techniques of knocking people out and locking onto them, using melee tactics to not alert other guys, using doorways to knock out people, because you can't really win very many head-on attacks. I can see why people really dig the gameplay in Hotline Miami. And the story's really good, too. I realized this when you came here. It's a hotline. So when people were calling me in the game, I was the
I've never made that connection.
Me neither, dude. And I answered like 4 phone calls. So you're aware that people wear masks in this game. The masks levy bonuses to you. So as you beat the levels, you'll unlock the mask that has Fists of Fury and the mask that allows you to see secrets. What I would do is I would try to use the analog stick to move my character at the beginning of the mission, but it'd still be in the mask selection screen, so it'll pan through all these blacked out masks that clearly you can unlock if you keep playing. And I saw so many masks just making that mistake, and I can totally see why people really dig the Miami cinematic universe. I will consider going back to it now that I know the controls. Like I said, the story, you would do a mission, and then you would go to, which might as well have been a playable cutscene, of you going into like a store, and then the shopkeeper will be like, hey, haven't seen you in a while since like, oh, did your girlfriend break up or something? Why are you so down? Anyway, here's this thing on the house. And it's like, okay, cool, a nice gesture. And then you go to the next mission and the same thing happens. Somebody gives you like something for free. You go to like a pizza store and they'll give you a pizza. Clearly, these business owners are like the people either ordering the hits or they're tasked with giving you like the payment money. And it's like super interesting how you're basically just like a mercenary. I can see why Hotline Miami is a lot of fun. Is it my cup of tea? Maybe. You know, it scratches that Broforce itch, even though it's not a platformer. We'll see. I haven't nailed the controls yet. So that's Hotline Miami.
Yeah, from the little bit I played several years ago, I remember it being twitch-based. You need to have some very speedy reflexes because guys will come at you quickly.
Yeah, and like all I was using to take people out before I figured out how to punch was the throw mechanic, and it's not designed for that to be your sole means.
No, that sounds like an insurmountable handicap.
Imagine me backtracking through a hallway with 2 guys running at the run speed that they go, picking up a bat, throwing it, picking up a crowbar and throwing it. And like I would knock one out and then I would knock out the second, and then the first one would res because they get back up if you don't do like the finisher on them. So yeah, Hotline Miami, maybe I'll go back into it. Hyper Light Drifter. I've yet to see the other games that the Hyper Light Drifter company made. It feels like a game I've played before, or it feels like how I imagine a Zelda game is.
I think it borrows from like the 2D Zelda games.
Does it? Okay. Because you're just this sole survivor in like a world conquered by the dark thing. And what you do is the standout immediately is the movement speed. So you can press A to just dash onto certain platforms, and it's super smooth. And then you get brought to like this, I thought it was going to be a linear, kind of like the game Inside, where you just keep moving from left to right. Or just, just keep progressing. But I got taken to this like home world with like 4 different quadrants, and I was like, oh, okay, if I beat this many bosses, I'll unlock the finals. Okay, so I went west and I fought some lions and got wrecked. So I went east and fought some frogs and didn't get wrecked. And there's projectiles. It's very pretty.
Yes, it has really beautiful pixel art.
And I can see how the gameplay is kind of fun. You got this Dark Souls-ish dodge and attack.
Mm-hmm.
I can see why people like it.
Do you have more or less desire to continue playing Hotline Miami or
Hyper Light
Drifter?
I have more desire to play Hotline Miami.
Oh, okay.
Because as cool as Hyper Light Drifter looks, I can just see the pathways happening where it's like, oh, okay, if I keep going this way, I'll eventually fight the big guy.
And you acquire new abilities as you progress in Hyper Light Drifter?
I've only acquired the gun.
Okay.
But I'm certain, you probably acquire area of effect things and different movement stuff. So maybe like a double warp.
The story, it's communicated to you without any dialogue, right?
No words.
It's very kind of vague, up to your interpretation kind of thing. I watched this video from the devs of Hyper Light Drifter years ago. So maybe these details are foggy, but I think the inspiration for the game, the main developer, I don't know if I should call him the main developer because it's like a team effort.
Is he mute?
I think he was diagnosed with a pretty like severe illness, and that kind of motivated the desire to create this game. Is your character ill with anything?
Yes.
Yeah.
He keeps coughing stuff up.
That is referencing the creator's own illness.
Oh, that's freaking rad and sad.
I know.
It's rad sad.
It's like a tragic thing, but
oh man, I kept like being like, stupid character, why you coughing all the time? I want to keep going.
Oh dear.
Because he slows down. He's all like, I'm dying.
Yeah, much like all of us. If you think about it.
So, oh man, that kind of guilts me into wanting to play more Hyper Light Drifter.
Good, that was my intention. We need more Hyper Light Drifter talk.
This is permanently becoming a Hyper Light Drifter podcast?
Exclusively.
Yes. Yeah, so those were the games I played. Smash, I'm a good Samus, but you will not hear any more Smash news until I unlock Elite Smash.
Got it. Is that a wrap on what we were up to this past week?
I guess so.
Yeah. It was a pretty busy week,
yeah.
I think. Let's see. We saw some news earlier in the show. Is there more news to cover, Heath?
Oh, I saw a Yakuza tweet and I favorited it or whatever. Every Yakuza side quest, NPC, I need a stamina, Kiryu. Kiryu, okay, gets into fight with 10 thugs because they wanted the stamina. Here's your stamina, said Kiryu. NPC, after all these years, the spirit of my dead daughter can rest in peace and I can talk to my wife. Here's a 9mm as a gift. It's got 5,000 likes on Twitter. Does Chris understand it?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I mean, that's a non-trivial amount of Yakuza side quests.
Okay. I watched the 17 minutes of Majima's intro.
Yeah.
What a cool character. I mean, it's so curious to see how a man of that stature could turn into this nefarious crime guy, downright wacky in other games. I love Customer Creed, the song that plays when you fight the drunk man.
Okay. Were you familiar with the song before watching the cutscene, or did you look this up?
Maybe I heard it once before, but this is a new song. You know how I started the show with Silva Gunner being closed?
Yes.
It's music like that and music like Customer Creed from Yakuza 0, and it's the T-Lopes soundtrack in Sonic Mania. I just need to have a Heath radio that has all the songs that I like, because when I YouTube game music, I find all these like symphonic
orchestrations.
Yeah, like these, like Horizon Zero Dawn. I don't want to listen to that. I don't want to look at it either. I wish I'd had like a radio station that it's like, coming up next, that one song from No More Heroes 2. And after that, we got maybe like a Deltarune remix. And I would, I feel like there's people out there that like the kind of music I like that have just, or would like the music I like, but has no representation. So, somebody show me how to make a radio station and I will load it up with bangers.
We'll have a spin-off podcast, which is just selections you've curated, musical tracks.
It'd be good. I have like 12 hours of my kind of songs. Like, you could put that on loop.
I could dive into a correction.
Oh, what's your correction?
Okay.
Is it a correction of me?
No, it is something I feel like I should represent more clearly, perhaps.
Because our friend was griping about my definition of gacha games. I clarified. It's a game where you spend money, get new characters. What's your correction?
I think he also said, like, Super Mario Party is the superior Mario Party game over Mario Party 9.
Fat lies. How can you say that? Super Mario Party is a skeleton of a Mario Party game that's been gutted down to 4 game boards. I, too, like playing basketball with a half-deflated ball.
Last episode, we spent a lot of time comparing and contrasting the apparent size of the movie industry with the game industry and what their actual sizes are in reality.
Did we invalidate that whole conversation?
No, not at all.
Good, because that was my favorite conversation thus far.
I just thought, place the 2 criteria we were comparing and contrasting, 2 behemoth industries. We were looking at the viewership of one award show to another one award show. We were also looking at the sales of one video game and how it compared to the sales of one movie. So pretty laser focused.
The smallest sample size.
Yeah, to compare 2 industries. So I thought I should just bring up a more comprehensive statistic and say it on this podcast for the purposes of clarity on comparing these 2 industries.
As long as it doesn't disagree with what I had to say last episode.
I don't think it invalidates anything we said. These numbers come from 2017, so they're not as recent as they possibly could be, but they're pretty close. From the ESA, aka the Entertainment Software Association, I found what they listed in 2017 to be total video game software revenue in the entirety of the United States. I'm also excluding any of the sales that would have come from hardware or consoles or controllers or peripherals, since there's no analogous thing in the movie industry that you're buying hardware for. So I don't think it's fair to throw that into the equation.
Okay.
So this is purely video game software sales and DLC and expansions. The ESA says in 2017, $29.1 billion were sold in video game software. Back over to Box Office Mojo, the website I was pulling statistics from last episode. This one is also from 2017, and the total box office revenue for North America, so that's US, and we're lumping Canada in too, although that's probably not do or die.
What is it, 40 billion?
11.1 billion.
Whoa.
So it was 11 billion for movies, 29 billion for video games.
Yo, games coming in strong.
Yeah. Here's what came to mind, though. For movies, that is only money made at the box offices. So movies continue to make money after they leave the theaters. You've got the DVD releases, you've got the Blu-rays, you've got them appearing on television, you've got streaming services, so they continue to get monetized. I wish I knew how much more money that section of the schedule gives movies.
Can't be just as much as the box office.
Yeah,
right? Has to be less.
I would assume it's not as much as the box office. Let's say it does make it to the box office numbers, though, and it doubles. Then we're still talking
less
22 billion to 29 billion. So, wow, games are huge. Are they? Are they bigger than movies? By dollars, it looks like it.
You said last episode, there are so many games compared to a relative few release of movies per year. Where do those dollars go? They go to Red Dead really hard. Mm-hmm. Or the AAA equivalent for each year. And then do the smaller games just perform much better than we anticipate?
It's an interesting question.
Does Celeste make $1 billion?
All right, here's something else that came to mind. Most video game sales happen in the first 2 weeks of release. And during the first 2 weeks a video game is out, it's selling for $60. Movie tickets aren't selling for $60. How much is an average movie ticket?
It's 12 to 20.
Okay. So we're talking 3 to 5 times more expensive to buy a video game at launch than to watch a movie at launch. So I guess to compare a population to a population, you'd have to divide the video game money by a factor of 3 to 5 to see how many people they're actually getting to,
Right.
versus how many people are getting to movies.
Do we have to take into account that you're only going to buy maybe like half a dozen games per year versus maybe even a dozen movie tickets per year?
That could be a factor too. It's interesting.
A shocking stat.
Yeah.
Nonetheless,
For
I think
sure.
we're big right, but
With all this coming to
out of
light,
nowhere.
would you still say it's probably a safe bet that more people will go to movies than there are people who are buying games?
Will more people go to movies than people buying games? Yeah.
Okay, I agree. I think that is the case, which means the video game industry is generating more money off of fewer people.
Which is just a more efficient product, I think.
Yeah, like what?
Or it just has greater market value.
How do you
maybe.
feel about that?
I don't think we're suckers. I mean, we're getting good entertainment regardless.
I think there's so many different ways you could interpret that. Maybe video games attract a more affluent crowd, so therefore they spend more of their disposable income on movies
but
or
Steam
on video
sales,
games. And Steam's
90% off.
right. For the savvy consumer, video games are very affordable, and great deals can be had year round.
Oh, but just like affluent moms and dads going to GameStop, getting the collector's edition without the canvas bag.
Does this mean like someone tries movies and someone tries video games. If the video game bug catches them, presumably they're spending a lot more money in the video game sphere than the movie sphere. Does that mean video games are, I guess depending on your perspective, more addictive or like more, let's say, addictive is the negative connotation. The positive connotation
Engaging?
is more engaging, more compelling, because like if you're more compelled, that's where you spend your money, and they're making the more money. All of these weird questions.
Are we secretly millionaires?
Yeah, I've just been, sorry, Heath, I'm retired.
God damn. I've been buying all this podcast equipment. Anyway, I really hope that this conversation keeps going. This like games industry versus other industries. You know what's a pretty interesting realization is we're reacting to this statistic, but I want to see what Paul Marketing and Ford, how are they reacting to this statistic? Are they going to be pairing up with the latest James Bond movie to sell their car, or are they going to pair up with Grand Theft Auto 6? Because more dollars for the games product is like a better form of advertising or just like a promotional thing. I'm waiting for a big name company like GM, the energy company. They must advertise on movies, right? Or just like do crossover-y promotional stuff. Are they going to see these big video game numbers and be like, well, that's the industry we want to dip our toes in?
It's a compelling question. Like, looking at the numbers on a spreadsheet, you'd think yes, but then I guess you could say if one of these two entertainment mediums had more of a stigma attached to it, I'd say video games probably do.
If you're listening and you're thinking, why is Heath wondering about what businesses are going to advertise on as far as like a entertainment product, you do realize, listener, that YouTube only got super big, just super corporate, because advertisers found it really friendly. As soon as they realized it was more than just like cat videos and people were drawing huge subscriber numbers, Pepsi ads started popping up on videos and GM ads. Where the advertisers go, as soon as big advertisers went for esports, then you started seeing it on ESPN. And esports coaches became a thing. Follow the money is what I ask of our listeners.
Right. As soon as advertisements are being put in front of billions of people's eyeballs, that's like normalizing things to a certain extent.
Yeah, the social fabric grows in that direction.
Right. That's what you were getting at.
I love this conversation. If you hate us talking about the games industry and what it means and like the competition among like markets and stuff, you turn this podcast off because I'm hoping it happens every episode.
Well, maybe not, because now we are exclusively a Hyperlight Drifter podcast.
Yes, of course.
Okay.
More info on the Frog Boss next episode.
That's a discussion I thoroughly enjoyed as well. I don't have too much more to say on it at this moment in time.
What a good correction. I've never felt so good to be corrected.
It wasn't a correction per se, just providing more context to the discussion.
An amendment.
Yes. All right. Did you have any corrections or?
No, I say everything correct.
Yes.
For the first time.
Super Mario Party 9, the superior Mario Party game.
Yeah.
In every sense of the word.
I think you said
Super Mario Party 9. I combined it.
The most ambitious crossover. That's it for me.
And no listener emails this week. You guys are slacking. Come on, send us your thought-provoking questions.
We'll read them.
Yes.
The questions we've gotten so far have been bangers, so let's keep it going.
Yes, very apt questions. I have a notes file on my iPhone here full of video game discussion questions. Here's one I had like a full conversation in my head about that I can now throw onto you.
Hit me.
How important is it that video games should strive to be fun? Let me break it down. Games are a leisure activity. Like, the word that comes to mind for the reason people play games is to have fun. And that's totally fine. I think the game industry, for as long as it exists, the majority of games releasing will always be fun, and I have no issue with that. Here's my opinion. I think putting the demand for games to be fun is kind of stifling the medium. When I say a game shouldn't have to be fun, I'm not saying it shouldn't be engaging and compelling entertainment. I'm just saying that the emotions it evokes aren't necessarily like joy and carefree, the things you associate with a fun time. Let's look at movies. Some of the best movies ever made, you wouldn't describe them as having a fun time watching them. Yes, like an extremely compelling time watching them. I'm thinking of things
like Clockwork Orange. And what's another movie that's like not fun to watch?
I would say Black Mirror is not a fun, uplifting time to watch.
No.
I love watching them, though. They make me think. They're like morbidly realistic. They're
bleak.
They give me things to think about for weeks after I watch the episode. It's compelling entertainment, but fun is not one of the words I would use to describe it.
Yeah, you're not going to throw it on the projector screen during your summer blockbuster party.
Right. Everyone would leave
Let's watch the pig episode.
Yeah. I think some games have come out in kind of contemporary times that are starting to do this. Here's an example we talk about almost every week, how Red Dead Redemption 2 maybe introduces realistic life simulating mechanics at the expense of just having like a fun, easygoing time.
Building the house is not what I think of when I think high octane gameplay.
They're going for a Western simulator. Maybe living life in the Wild West isn't very fun all the time.
Oh, really? What with the lawlessness and lack of vaccines?
Yes. Or like 2013's The Last of Us, a harrowing tale of survival in...
Good pick.
It's not a zombie outbreak technically, but for all intents and purposes,
it's
a
zombies.
fungus infection that is controlling people's minds.
Gotta throw the brick at the guy.
Yes. So a game that is... Every scene is bleak and depressing. There's very little... Except for when you see a giraffe, you're never smiling during this game.
No high fives are awarded when you get to the end of the mission.
Right. And yet, when The Last of Us came out in 2013, it was overwhelmingly selected as like the game of the year at all the major outlets. It still receives universal praise today. The Last of Us 2, which is coming out in the next couple of years, is one of the most anticipated games, and yet it wasn't fun.
Good point. It looked like Uncharted. It played like Uncharted.
They completely replaced like the tone and the themes with
Right. You don't have to climb up the cargo net of the plane.
right. So in a sense, I think we're here. And some discussions I see that crop up online are like, it bothers me when after people have played a game and they kind of dismiss it saying it wasn't fun. I don't think every game should strive to do that. Who cares if it wasn't fun? Did it make you think? Was it compelling? That's more important.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think I'm in an extremely tiny minority here with this line of thinking, or do you think this is a movement that's going to gain traction?
I'm not sure it's gonna gain traction. No one's being like, "Yo, give me that dystopian. I want to feel hope seep from my body." Like, I will say that I was watching a Donkey video last night about difficulty in games and how he beat Halo on Legendary after many tries. And then he goes back and plays it on Heroic difficulty, which is the second highest.
Yeah, second highest.
And it's a cakewalk, and he doesn't really enjoy it as much. But would he have enjoyed it more had he not played Legendary? And which is the one that it's meant to be played? It's not like a Nintendo game that has one fixed difficulty.
Right.
If you can crank the difficulty like in Wolfenstein, which is the more fun difficulty? The hardest one, because you get that level of satisfaction?
In the case of Wolfenstein, I don't have any trouble saying the easier difficulty is more fun. You have to be a masochist to play that game on the hardest setting. There's even an achievement in Wolfenstein, which is the most trolling achievement ever. You have to play the game on the hardest difficulty, and you can't die a single time, otherwise you start over.
I'd like to know what the title of that achievement is. Let's also give honorable mention to the Stanley Parable, in which one of the endings has you keeping a cutout of a baby from walking into a fire pit for 4 hours, and there's an achievement for that too.
That's not like a conventional gameplay idea. That's more of a joke, right?
The narrator chimes in and he's like, "You're halfway there," and he adds another thing you have to have a button press for.
Got it.
That ending isn't fun, but I don't fault the game for it. Mm-hmm. Is that the right answer? What's the right answer, Chris?
I just think that people need to maybe be more open to the idea of games not providing a fun experience. Game of Thrones is a show, one of the most popular shows out there, that consistently hurts its viewership with how depressing and sad it is. And people love it, they can't get enough. We don't ever criticize, when we watch a movie or TV show, we don't come away saying, "Oh man, that wasn't fun to watch, therefore they did a bad job." I just think we should hold video games in the same kind of perspective, where fun isn't the be-all, end-all. You should look for what it's saying and how it's saying it.
Shout out to Old Boy, which is a Korean film I had to watch for my international film course during the summer. That's a movie about a guy whose wife is killed and his daughter is taken. He gets like imprisoned, and then he ends up having like a relationship with his daughter, and it's all like, ugh, gross, because it's like the worst punishment you could give a person. So that's a movie that's not enjoyable just like if you're reading the script, but there's a fight scene in that movie that's like one of the best fight scenes anyone has ever composed, in which it's just like a fighting game. It's just a left and right, one guy versus like 7. You ever watch Daredevil? They have like the hallway scene where it's like one continuous shot of Old Boy was the inspiration for that scene. So it's a killer scene that's fun, in quotations, in a not fun movie. What was your point? That people should be like, hey, video games can be not fun.
And that's like totally
Battlefield
fine.
5, you know?
Shots fired.
Literally, shots fired.
That's all I had to say on the topic.
I'm certain I'm going to come up with 5 more cool examples of not fun games or movies.
If you do, bring them to corrections on next episode.
Sure. We'll do, corrections / amendments. Mm-hmm. That'll work.
Well, that'll about wrap up episode 5 of Mobius Tubes.
Let me
won't it,
talk
Heath?
about what I want to play next week.
Oh, you're right. I'm cutting you off at the knees. I'm sorry.
So I feel like I gotta play Hotline Miami because I have Hotline Miami 2, and I want to be like, oh, the sequel brings this to the table. Red Dead Redemption is still on my docket, and I wanted to play Into the Breach, but we'll see if I ever get to that. So that's what I'm looking forward to. And unless any surprise Bandersnatches happen, I will fulfill playing those games. What are you playing next week?
I'm going to wrap up my last Freedom Chronicle in Wolfenstein II. And I don't want to make a promise, but I might be leaning towards Hitman 2016.
A blast from the past? Is that the most recent Hitman or no?
So Super Bunny Hop just did a review on this year's Hitman 2, which is the direct sequel to the Hitman game that's on my docket.
Tell me if that Hitman 2016 has the mission where you crush a guy at an excavation site, and the last mission is 3 super soldiers fighting among like a ruins.
Okay.
Because I mentioned that in my top 10, and
right.
we've yet. If you know which Hitman that is, write to us at mobiustubespodcast@gmail.com.
I'm guessing it's either Blood Money or Absolution. Those are the Chris guesses.
The most recent ones that Heath would have played.
Probably.
Cool. Lots of good talks this episode.
Yeah, a fun one. Please write us an email at mobiustubespodcast@gmail.com. Yes, I'm talking to you.
The listener.
The listener. Anything that's on your mind, please share it with us.
With your spiky hair and your blue/brown/green eyes.
And there's a very, very high possibility we will address your question on the air.
We love reading questions.
Yes, it's a highlight of the show. Thank you, Heath.
Thanks, Chris. Take it away.
And that'll be it.